About Pygmalion, and you talked about the musical version of the show, why do you think audiences respond so favorably, or maybe the better question is why more production houses will opt in favor of the musical over the play when the play is so rich and has such a rich language and so many textures?
Well, so indeed, to be fair, so indeed is My Fair Lady. It's a great musical.
Well, it does, but I don't think necessarily that it is a stronger piece.
No, it's different
than the play.
It's different,
It's just
and
different.
there's some ways in which it's different. One gentleman who was sitting by me during preview week when I was sitting in still taking notes as a director turned to me at the end and he said, "Who decides what parts to leave out?" And I said, "Well, we didn't leave out any parts." And he said, "Well, there's not the scene where where you see him actually instructing her. You just see the scene where she tries to pass herself off as a lady the first time." He wasn't getting that from the musical, but from the 1930s film with Wendy Hiller playing Eliza, where they made changes for the film.
Right.
And he was quite surprised when I said that wasn't part of the original. Actually, so was Shaw quite surprised, because he was promised by this man named Pascal, who produced the movie, that there wouldn't be any changes to the script, and then there were. Shaw was furious. He always thought he knew best about everything. And, but there were changes made for the film. There were also changes made for the film which implied that the two lead people would wind up together romantically, which Shaw, once he read that people, or once he heard that people were making that conclusion, wrote pages and pages of what really happened in his mind, which was not that they wound up together romantically. But it's better for the film, and it's better for a musical, you know, to suggest at least that they're going to make whatever compromises are to get together. So it becomes a different thing. And I'm a great admirer of the musical, but actually more so of the play. And I'm a musician, as you know. I mean, I care about musical issues. But you can't beat this play for being a play.
No, and it has so many colors. It's interesting when you're talking about the different translations going from the stage to the film and to a stage musical where part of the story is being told in three directions, that so many audiences have an expectation of getting all of the information from one medium that they have from another. How do you think theater helps audiences that perhaps do not have a strong theater background in understanding that translation process?
Well, I think, first of all, you just sort of surprised them, like that gentleman who didn't quite know the answer to the question. I think he asked the question legitimately. He thought we had decided to make some changes, and when I said no, we didn't really, and then told him about the history. I've done a great many translation adaptations of Molière, and including, and I typically don't approve of adaptations and translations that take something from its original setting and moving it to another time period. But I did The Miser.
What bothers you about that?
Well, it's you start confusing playwright intentions sometimes. There are a lot of times that okay, you wanted. I'll tell you, opera's a good example where they frequently will change periods quite drastically, set something in Mussolini's time or something, and it just has a different resonance, and everybody knows the original way, so it's okay to play with it and say this is our take in a different version. But typically, I'm not so sure that everybody's seen, for example, a Mandragola, or has seen something in its original setting before they're ready to move on to look at it from another point of view. The Miser was a play where I did change it, and I set it in New Orleans just after the Civil War, because New Orleans was a place that was rather ruthlessly plundered by the North. It was captured very early, and during the war, money was taken from the citizens. There was a great deal of disruption of the social fabric in many, many different ways. It sort of gave the miser a reason to be a miser, because things had been stolen and taken away. And there was also this, we weren't speaking French for the audience, so to give the play a language, this is one of the definitions of Aristotle about what a play is composed of, one thing it's composed of is the language of the play. That doesn't mean English, French, German. That means a vernacular, something suitable, as you would have in an August Wilson play, the vernacular of the African American, as you would have in the Southern Tennessee Williams play. You'd have the Southern speech. So I could mine, as I did, a lot of letters written by soldiers in the Civil War back to their homes in the South, and pick up sayings that gave the play, that I incorporated into the play when I needed a metaphor or something, that gave it all this particular flavor of language that had therefore its own world to exist in. So I don't really object to shifting the period and shifting plot things around, whatever, if what you wind up with is a whole, something whole again. But very often that has to be cheated so drastically that I don't approve. One of the plot elements of The Miser is that there's a family that's been separated by the war, and they have a last-minute reunion that solves the problems of the play. Well, the diaspora of a family that's disrupted by the war is perfectly believable and known about if we talk about the Civil War, whereas if you talk about whatever war that was Molière was complaining about and said it, we don't have any knowledge of that. So I think as theater artists, we get to make decisions based on not so much rules but imaginations.